Hey folks, welcome to Breach Please, the cybersecurity show for people who are tired of being sold a firewall and a feeling. I'm Jake Williams, and with me as always is Jess Strike. Between the two of us, we've broken into networks, defended them, and shown up at 3 a.m. to clean up the messes that everybody else has hot takes about online. When we tell you something's nonsense, you can take it to the bank. Here's the deal. Every episode, we're going to take the stories, the security stories that actually matter, translate them out of vendor speak, dump the FUD, get them into English, say the things your CISO wishes they could, but they'd be banished from the industry if they did. They'd never go to another one of those nice vendor dinners again. No fear mongering though, no vendor scripts, and absolutely no synergizing our threat posture. If you hear that on this show, I promise you, it's a duress signal. Breach,
blink
please.
Twice if you're okay.
Pull up a chair. Hey, so what's going on?
Hey, I don't know, still getting really excited about summer camp coming up.
Right.
If you haven't caught that episode, it just dropped. Go check it out. There's some really good stuff out there. And also on LinkedIn, a lot of people are, some of the elders and OGs, people who have been around for a while, are starting to, drop tips and stuff. So go check those out because we didn't possibly cover everything. But what I was really interested in talking about with you, Jake, and we did cover some of this in a previous episode, but it continues to be in the news.
There's more data about it too, right?
Right.
That's
Is the Hugging Face OpenAI hack. Hugging Face at this point has come out with a post-mortem. There's some really neat eye candy in their write-up as well. And then JFrog also has some commentary on it. So I think we should dig into that.
Yeah. Look, I want to double down on something I said in the original episode. We talked about this. We talked about the OpenAI losing control of their agents. We now have a timeline, a real post-mortem timeline from Hugging Face, and I got to tell you, I'm back to I wish OpenAI was a publicly traded company because I wouldn't be getting that. I mean, look, the stuff that they put out would be considered materially misleading in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at this now, of course, they could say, "Hey, we didn't know, we didn't have any of the logging data at all to even reconstruct that." That itself would be a separate
damning,
problem.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
right.
like what?
Right. Well, and then tell me, by all means, tell me your enterprise stack is different, right? But okay, I'm still concerned, still really concerned. So. Looking at this literally play by play, right, from Hugging Face, the timing on this is amazing. How fast a lot of this is running, knowing that it's autonomous, right? We've been doing attack orchestration for more than a decade, right? 2 decades, with stuff like Ansible, what have you. But man, looking at knowing that this was an automated agent, I don't know. What do you think about the timelines?
So just reading this was fascinating, right? And I love how Hugging Face is on, I think it was July. So it started on July 9th and then it's July 10th, fairly quiet day where it's just, doing a couple of things. And then July 11th, boof, lateral movement, all of this, really good detail. And I have to say, bravo to Hugging Face for being so transparent about, and this is where we had failings in our security controls, our environment, and this is what we did to fix it. I really appreciate that. And what I also appreciate is that they came out and said this could have happened with a human as well.
Right.
It just happened at speed because of an autonomous agent. There was nothing new or novel here aside from the fact that it was an autonomous agent exercising this.
Right.
But all of this could have happened to us anyway.
Bingo. That's it. That's the key point. All of it could happen to you anyway. By the way, relatively quiet day on the 10th, right? They list 1,100 actions, right, that were taken by the agent. So quiet being a relative term there.
Right.
Very relative term there. Yeah. I mean, I think a couple of things that jumped out at me, and you brought up the point around this could have happened without an agent, right? It could have been just a human actor. Yeah, no doubt, right? Absolutely no doubt. And look, as you look at the vulnerabilities or misconfigurations that they tie back largely, right, to Kubernetes. I'm going to say something very unpopular here that I've said multiple times before to my clients, to Ian's clients, you name it, and that's that I love Kubernetes. Most of us are less secure with Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes is a difficult beast to wrap your head around. If you are running Kubernetes in production, you owe it to yourself to go take Jay Beal's Attacking and Defending Kubernetes class. It is amazing. I thought I understood Kubernetes pretty well, and then I took the class, and it was one of those, oh my gosh, like here's all the stuff that I didn't even know. Some of it, obviously I had familiarity with it, I understood, but like a bunch of it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I had not even thought about. So these are attack paths that I'm not even thinking about. They're by and large. I should note here, it's not the kind of thing that your CSPM is going to alert you on unless you have it dialed all the way up to 11, in which case you're drowning in, hey, this could be an issue, configuration alerts, right? So,
like alert fatigue stuff?
Yeah, I think we were talking about that, except here, it's a CSPM, so it's less of an alert than it is a configuration.
I know, but it's still an overwhelming amount of data, right? And it's probably the same people monitoring that, and so it's more data. Sorry, that's a tangent, but
no, you're right. You're 100% right. I want to note here, right, that they like highlight here. They say 2 of our own settings allowed the respawning, basically node respawning of a fleet. Talking nodes, we're already talking Kubernetes here, but we had no admission policy, rejecting privilege and host path pods. And the CSI driver's cluster role granted pod creation cluster wide. Look, we see this kind of stuff all the time, right? I got to tell you, one of my first snap when I land on a pen test, when I land in a container, I just look for kube control, right? If it's there, done, right? I mean, odds are, because it shouldn't be in a container. Nothing's in a container unless it should be, or unless it's something that's intended to be used. Containers are intentionally stripped down, right? And so if it's there,
that would be a really, I'm thinking of some former organizations that I have experience with. That it's like, it's in a container, it's fine, and it's like, no, you have all this extra stuff in here. What are you doing? Why is this in here? It's not meant to be in here.
Yeah.
Literally the whole run it like it's a mini data center, or like that everything has to be in there, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're literally violating the purpose of having a container. If you want to operate like this, don't do it in a container.
I mean, so containers broadly, we should just note here real quick, containers broadly have to have 2 real primary benefits. You could enumerate dozens, I'm sure, but from the operations side, it makes sure that basically you're packaging the application with its dependencies. On the security side, you're only packaging the application with its dependencies and not a bunch of other stuff that you don't need. So there's minimal attack surface. So as Jessica mentions, like, this thing's a mini data center, right? Like, yeah, exactly. That's the setup to fail, because again, huge additional attack surface, or at bare minimum, when the threat actor, if a threat actor lands on that container, then there's more tools to use, right? More things available for them to use. So yeah, it's just all the way around. It's So again, go ahead, Bar.
I was going to ask if you wanted to talk about the API security failings here.
Sure, fire away. Where do you want to start?
The fact that it accepted input that it should not have. I mean, I'm not a programmer, guys, and so I don't understand like all the details. That's why I have Jake here as my partner.
That's the only reason. Good to go. Yeah.
Absolutely the only reason. No, just kidding. But as he said before, we make each other stronger, right? So when I was reading the write-up, and it talked about data being passed in the API, violating Hugging Face's or abusing Hugging Face's own API by sending data that should not have been accepted, and it was, and then that led to I think in one case it was interpreted, it was supposed to be numeric data and it was interpreted as Janinja, is that how you say it?
Jinja
Which,
config? Yeah.
yeah, which allowed
Template,
it to
excuse me.
be,
Sorry.
yeah, allowed it to be, code executed. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's about as much as I know, but that should not have happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was abusing the API. The API should not have allowed that. So I was just wondering if you had any, prior to even getting to the container, there were
Oh,
these
yeah.
failings, and I don't think folks understand API security well in general anyway. I think it's a under examined attack surface.
Yeah, no, concur 100%. It is definitely an under-examined attack surface. Most folks don't understand it well. It's difficult, right? I mean, we've got to think auth and auth Z. We've then got to think about, we don't typically run into things like cross-site scripting because typically the API, I mean, the return from the API may trigger cross-site scripting was used in a browser context. Most APIs, are not, we're separating the API from the browser context itself. And
Right.
in most cases, that API is not delivering, data back to, or intended only to deliver the data back to a browser. So yeah, one of the primary failings here, ended up being a arbitrary file read. The threat actor was able to trigger here. They call it a raw storage file read. They don't say arbitrary, but like in exploits, that's typically what we refer to as
Are we going to
vulnerabilities
call the
exploits.
autonomous agent a threat actor? I I feel like in my own brain that anthropomorphizes them. Yeah,
Okay, yes.
humanizes.
That
Adds,
word. Anthropomorphize. Yeah,
yes, that word. I'm not good with multi.
that's okay.
Yeah. I can't say operationalize consistently. Too many syllables.
Winning.
Which is why Spanish is hard for me too. So anyway, I have a hard time calling it a threat actor. To me, that implies a human element. And while I agree the outcome is largely the same, I have a hard time calling it a threat actor.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you on that.
Please.
Why? So if I orchestrated an attack against you using Ansible, right?
Mhm.
Would you call me a threat actor then?
Yes.
How is this any different? So the definition of a threat, as I see it, is the intersection of intent, opportunity, and capability, right? So capability of the hostile actor, right? The intent of the hostile actor, and then any opportunities that we've given that intersect there, against their capabilities. Look, as much as I don't want to anthropomorphize, it drives you crazy. I know that's one of my big pet peeves. I think here it's a distinction without a difference, and I think it's one that actually undermines some of the messaging to, splitting that hair undermines the messaging back to my enterprise, stakeholders, is my take on that.
But I feel like if I go into an exec meeting about this or do an exec briefing, if I say threat actor, those non-technical folks are going to make that leap to a human, and they're going to miss. And I don't know that it necessarily matters, but I think it might in these early days.
Okay.
In the early days where this is new frontier. I think they're going to hear human, and not that it necessarily changes the response. I mean, we've talked about this. It doesn't change the response. It doesn't change the outcome. That kind of thing. I am thinking about messaging to those senior leaders and execs and boards of directors that I'm uncomfortable with it. I agree with what you're saying, and I hear you.
Yeah. I also hear you
I'm
on the
struggling.
whole. Yeah, I mean, this is a great discussion, right? Because, how you message to senior leadership makes a huge difference. And again, I 100% hear you here. I still am going to call this a threat actor. I'm going to be clear up front, right, that we are talking about an autonomous agent. But the thing because I've been beating this drum for months, right? The thing that changed was speed. That's it.
Yes. Oh,
right?
100%.
Nothing else has changed, right? I mean, you can argue, right, that, you can argue that it's democratized the,
I hate that word, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, sure, right? But
no, but yeah, I think it's overused, but go ahead.
Made wider spread, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Lower the barrier to entry, right, for for human threat actors to get into the game and automate their attacks. But look, realistically, nothing's changed from the attack outcome, attack complexity. Nothing's changed, and so I don't know, right?
So you just made me think of something.
Yeah.
It's a tangent.
I already have APTs, though. Yeah.
You do.
Real quick, though, just to close this thought out.
Yeah.
I already have APTs that I have to defend against. I mean, look, if you're, if you're Joe's Car Wash, right, with 3 locations, okay, good. Yeah, you don't have APTs to defend against. And even if you did, you don't have the budget to deal with them. But the rest of us do. And so now I'm back to the whole, like, I don't actually care that Joe threat actor, right, suddenly is able to be a little bit better, right? I don't care, right?
Faster, yeah.
Because I already, right, it's faster, but a lot of people are like, well,
the vulnerability was still there. The opportunity was already there. It's just at speed now.
Right, because people get into the whole like, well, it's making script kiddies so much more effective, and I'm like, great, cool. So now basically you have more people that were already targeting you at a level way higher than this, right? You have more people below them, right? But your bar for keeping, a hypothetical threat actor out of the network was already yay high. What you now have are more people that are moving from here to here, right? And so nothing's changed this bar, and this is the one you've got to worry about. And in my mind, so then I'm back to the whole, literally the thing that's changed is speed. Maybe the number of these two, right? But speed is the big element that's changing. So sorry, I didn't mean to. Just wanted to close that thought out.
No, so I actually had a second thought after that. But so you actually touched on what I was going to say is, are we still using script kiddie as a pejorative here? Because when you started thinking about, when you started saying, oh, these automations are more available, but I immediately thought of script kiddies, right? And we're always like, oh, that was a script kiddie, blah, 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 and it's a pejorative and whatever. Are we still doing that here?
Sorry, I was just grabbing an available term. I
thought of it before you said it.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think script kiddie is a pejorative. I think it's somebody that's running attacks that they don't understand. Has really been that they don't fully understand. Right, has always been my definition of script kiddie, and I don't think you can get a better example of that than somebody who is using an LLM and directing an agent to go attack. Like that literally is the extreme definition of somebody running attacks that they don't fully understand themselves. So yeah.
My other thought was, what's OpenAI's APT name?
Ooh, well we're not going to do it on the show here, right? Because danger, Will Robinson. But lawyers say no. We are absolutely doing that. By the way, if you're interested, Jessica created a fantastic APT card for our fake APT, Pandemonium. It's our Hacker Jeopardy name over at dfiu.malwarejake.com. You can go see that. But we're definitely, we've got to come up with one for OpenAI. I'm down for this, right? Because I think it drives, that more than a lot of other things that I've seen. I certainly am not going to talk about some of the huge hot takes around, gotta be able to patch 30 minutes after it's released and whatever, that garbage. It's just people that keep saying that have never worked in enterprise.
I can't patch 5 months after it's released.
Thank you.
You think I'm going to suddenly be able to patch in 30 minutes? Get out of here.
By the way, too, I literally just updated a password on a client machine this morning, on a client network this morning, because it's like, password going to expire. And I went and did that, and the password update, it's like, updated Active Directory, updated this other IDP, and I keep looking down and it hits 2 RACF systems, right? And I'm like, yep, there we go, right? So that's
an organization that I have recently consulted with is still running their main product on Drupal 6.
Yep. We should be really clear here and mention. Well, actually, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to be clear on the Rack F side. I'm not knocking anybody here.
No.
That's enterprise reality.
Yeah.
But the people I am knocking, right? We're going to be clear. People I am knocking are the folks who are like, oh, well, just update to server 2025 headless. The data center core, and then ... And it's like, you clearly don't work in real enterprise, because that's not how anything works.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just can't stand the hot takes of like, oh, we'll just do X, Y, and Z, and everything will be fine. And it's like, okay, right, thanks. Yeah. Thanks for that useful tidbit, right?
Yeah. Again,
so hey,
remove just from your vocabulary.
So let's wrap back around to Hugging Face here, the API side, right? So this starts with a ultimately a raw storage file read. Now, a lot of times people are like, oh, it's a file read. Well, it is, but don't use just a file read, because with a file read, in a lot of cases, you can gain admin permissions, right? An arbitrary file read on Windows is a privilege escalation to system. Should be very, very clear about this, right? If you can read any file on Windows, you will elevate to system rapidly. And so the same thing happened here. This arbitrary file read allowed them to pull, environment variable data. Well, .env files that get loaded for, and so here we then have ultimately data that we're able to go pull out, right? Or they, right, as a threat actor, the agent, right, pulls information.
No, say threat actor. I'm settled.
Threat
That's
actor,
fine.
yeah. Got the pod's full environment, got secrets and credentials. Folks, this is another reason, and I'm gonna say something else pretty controversial here. There's no such thing as just read in the cloud. If you have cloud environments, if you have orchestrated environments like Kubernetes, what have you, folks are, they have reader permission. I'm like, they have admin, they just haven't asked for it yet, or don't know how to ask for it, right? And this is yet another example of like, oh, it's reader permissions. Like, I go into AWS consoles or Azure, or somebody's like, hey, we gave you read. And I'm like clicking on looking at environment, like the variables that you're pushing in. Oh, there's the auth key for storage. Okay, cool. Right. What can we grab from
Here
there?
We go.
There's right. And now, granted, I should note here, right, I'm talking red team style stuff where it's like, I got reader permission. Now, where do I go from here? And the answer usually is to control plane access or management plane access, but which is exactly what they did, because then they did template injection. And this is another one that people, poo-poo all the time, where it's like, oh, it's just a template. And it's like, the template was what again? Code? And like, but like, it's JavaScript. And it's like, well, okay, neat.
Cool. It could be magical unicorn dust.
Right. The bottom line is if it's executing in an engine, right, then, server side executing an engine. And that's the problem. I think a lot of people think templates and they think like CSS or something. And it's
okay, yeah.
Right? Because we're not talking about just the front end, right? Most of our web apps today, right? You think about like Next.js and whatnot, they're doing server-side rendering, right?
Yeah.
So what you're getting, you're not having to render your browser doesn't have to use power to render the page. This matters a lot, by the way, like phenomenally when it comes to mobile, right? Because if your browser's rendering the page, the phone is getting hot. Right? And so people coming to your site are losing battery power and whatnot. And it's also slow, right? Your stuff's slower to load, right? Like, so a lot of the stuff where you say template injection, it's running servers, even though it's like, it's JavaScript that lands in the browser. I'm like, does it? Right? Because sometimes, a lot of cases here, it just doesn't. Yeah. Now I should note here in the Jinja case, we're talking about Python. I was thinking back to a recent red team, but anyway, this ultimately allows Python code executed inside the environment. And so, that's huge. That gives the foothold. And then we're on to, okay, cool. Now let's go find, now that we have shell command execution, because, that came with the Jinja template. We got to being able to load the Jinja template by getting secrets, right? We had the arbitrary file read. So we're following a kill chain here, or the actor is following a kill chain here. Now, this is where I got to come back and say, man, this is a lot of time for OpenAI to not notice this, right? Hugging Face, when we did our first episode, this postmortem just was on OpenAI. This postmortem was not available.
No.
Hugging Face had talked about the incident. OpenAI had talked about the incident. We knew dates around the 16th. When Hugging Face
when
released,
they came forward, right? We didn't know the actual, and we talked about it in that episode.
Yes.
We didn't know the actual timeline.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that you know the timeline, So we know that we know that there are attacks beginning on the 9th. We know that those roll all the way forward to the 13th. We're talking about, well over 10,000, pushing into 15 plus thousand actions take. I think it was 17,000 total. Something. I'm doing rough math looking here. But knowing that number of actions spreading across a 5-day period, how do you defend this if you're sitting in OpenAI's shoes? You're the enterprise CISO. You've been told this happened. What do you do? Let's flip the script here, because this is going to happen to some of our listeners and our clients, 100%. Right? So,
we identified a gap in our logging monitoring capabilities that we take very seriously and are taking action to close that gap as soon as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it, right? So look, another big thing here you're going to have to do if you've got agents, right? You've got to start. I mean, heck, if you think you're going to be attacked by agents, both, you've got to think about logging and how you're looking at volumetric.
And if you think you're not going to be attacked by an agent, you're going to need to change your mindset, right now.
Let's talk mindset shift, right? Because speaking of agents, right, I think the more likely thing for most organizations is not that they are going to get hacked by somebody else's agent. I think the more likely thing for them is that their own agents, because I've seen it multiple times already, are going to do something unexpected internally. And so when I look at agents, I look at 3 different threat models, right? One, it's broad threat models. One, I'm looking at my external threat actor using an agent. I don't care whether they direct the agent or the agent decides, right? That's the force of action to come hack me. But outside in, I've got inside hacking out, right? So hacking a customer. We talked a bit about that before. Goodness, right? And then you've got the third one. It's the insider threat. It's the agent, through goal manipulation, and again, through no fault of, or maybe even no intention.
That's what happened with this agent. It was trying to pass the exploit gem test or whatever. And it was like, forget that noise. Hugging Face has the answers. I'm just going to go get them.
Right. Yeah, and again, this is a benchmark situation. When you put an agent in prod, right, all 3 of those things can happen. So, knowing this, right, and thinking about this, how do you brief that risk to a COO who's saying, gotta go fast, we want these agents, Salesforce said it was awesome, go, right? Or pick a backup, not Salesforce.
What are you doing, man?
What's that?
What are you doing, man?
I know. It's going to back up there. Salesforce didn't say it was cool. Vendor X said, take our agents. We're going to add them to your licensing fee this year, no matter whether you use them or not, so you'd better use them. This is a real argument we're hearing right now. Definitely having
from
nothing to do.
From multiple big vendors.
Yes, with multiple big vendors, not just the one I mentioned. I mean, excuse me.
Yeah.
Not the one I mentioned. How about that? Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Anywho. Yeah. So you've got your COO saying, we got to use this stuff. We're paying for it anyway. Go. How do you brief that risk?
So if I think about my risk fundamentals, I am first going to try and figure out where on the risk matrix it falls, the likelihood and impact, right? So if I take each of those 3 items, and I would take them separately, I would try and map, based on my organizational context and my business acumen and what I know, what is the likelihood of this happening? And there's data out there of this happening now, so you're not going to be low on the likelihood, right? And then I'm going to think about the impact. And it's like, okay, if this happened against my financial system, huge impact. If that happens in my customer facing and I'm breaching data, high impact, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to talk about our organizational risk tolerance and where it fits. And then what do we do then, business leaders that I'm briefing, to treat this risk, right? Okay. We're not ignoring it. That's out the window.
Yep.
I mean, you could, but I mean, really, that's not the answer here. So what are we doing? We're not transferring it. Like, yeah, maybe we have some cyber insurance, but it probably won't cover these situations. And you might have a hard time collecting on that, right? So ignoring and transferring are out the window. So what are we doing to either say, accept the risk and go, yep, we're okay. We're going to accept this risk, which I think is a bad decision. And then what are we going to do to mitigate it? Are there additional controls? Is there additional monitoring and sufficient level of alerting so that someone takes it seriously and pays attention if these things happen? That's how I'm thinking about it. I think we might diverge a little bit in our opinions here. Oh. So no, okay.
I don't really think so, but I do want to do a follow-up question here because you talked about, likelihood and impact, right? I'm going to say, that I don't think I can measure likelihood here because this is too new, right? Goal manipulation, right? And the idea, go ahead.
But we have seen examples now, right? And so it's...
Yeah,
because when we think about likelihood, we think about in the terms of how many times this year could this happen, right?
Well, yeah.
And we're... It's not going to be precise necessarily, but I gotta say 0.5, right? Like it might happen.
I don't know. I feel like they're just respectfully, like I don't have the data to give you a good likelihood other than this isn't science fiction. This isn't unprecedented, right? So it is going to happen, but I can't tell you I'm being more, I am actually directly saying this to clients. It's not like a one-off here that I'm just, kind of spitballing. Like I tell them, I can't tell you the likelihood and you have to move forward with the knowledge that it can and is happening. But I can't tell you with what frequency it's going to happen in your organization, right? But
isn't that true of a lot of risks? But
I have baselines for those. I have data for those over time. This is brand new modality, right? Not all tasks are the same. You mentioned, the Hugging Face example, right? Or the OpenAI example. The agent inferred that Hugging Face had the solution, so it went and hacked Hugging Face. Not all, lots of tasks are vulnerable to goal manipulation problems, right? Or reward hacking. Still hate the goal manipulation. Reward hacking, goal manipulation, whatever problems. Few of them result in now let's go hack this, right? To gain the data. I don't think most of them do. Again, this is where we don't have a base rate of because agents just writ large have not been used that much in enterprise. So
okay, so let's say we agree there.
Okay.
How do we help organizations then figure out how to proceed with less than complete data, right? Because we can't just go, well, I don't know, so good luck, right? And boards are asking their CISOs and executive leaders are asking their security teams and they're asking, consultants, what do we do? How do we measure this risk? How do we proceed? And we don't want to be fuddy, right? We've spent years trying to get the FUD out of our practice. How do we help our clients through this?
Well, again, this is where I'll be very, upfront with them and tell them I'm not trying to be fuddy, right? This isn't FUD. This is me telling you, I'm telling you I have uncertainty. I'm not trying to instill uncertainty and be like, oh my gosh, here's this thing that I'm telling them I'm uncertain. I'm telling them I don't have the answers. And not just me, nobody does. But what I am explaining to them is that if somebody is telling you that they've got a foolproof solution for this, they're lying to you, right? If they tell you that,
totally.
If they tell you they know with any certainty the likelihood, they're lying to you, right? Because nobody knows, right? I think that's important. So to answer your question around how am I helping them contextualize the risk? I'm making sure they understand that as an industry, we don't know. As an industry, this is brand new. Now, look, the easy part, right? And easy, air quotes. The easiest of those three things is an agent on the outside coming in because that's the same attack paths that we're defending against otherwise. But we have architected our networks from the ground up, right, to keep badness out.
Yes.
Right? Not to keep a bad thing from leaving our network, right? And attacking somebody else.
That's a new paradigm. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And go ahead and tell me all day long how great you are at insider threat, right? How awesome you are there.
I've yet to see it.
Yeah, I'll laugh right along with you, right? Because the vast majority of organizations, right, that I've ever had a chance to work with, they absolutely suck at insider threat. They just suck at it, right? And look, hey, honestly, that's not where you should be spending your money. In the vast majority of cases, right, that's not your largest attack surface. Spend your money where it matters.
And if that is where you're spending your time and your money, maybe reevaluate what fundamentals you're not doing and redirect resources there, because so many organizations are not even practicing the fundamentals well.
Almost every time we deal with insider threat, almost every time I get a client coming to me and saying, Jake, we've got to overhaul our insider threat program, it's because of a catalyst, right? It's because they just, and a catalyst meaning they just had an insider threat problem, or sometimes a near miss with an insider threat or what have you. And then they're like, this can never happen again, go, right? And so, I remind them that is literally the definition of an availability bias, right? Or recency bias, if you want to, but either one, both, right? You're looking at something that just happened. You're not looking at all the other stuff that you're not seeing potentially, right? Likely not seeing. And so I'm not saying don't spend money on insider threat. I should be real clear about that. But I'm saying that in general, of these three paradigms, right? So we don't sidetrack too far here. Of the three paradigms, three threat models, the outside agent coming in, that's the easy one. Of the three, the other two, you are most of my clients, right, the vast majority of enterprise organizations just are not ready for. And so maybe one other thing before we pivot to that other story, reading the post-mortem, right, around this. Let's suppose this wasn't an outside-in hack, right? You're the Hugging Face CIO. You have, or CISO, I should say, CISO. This was an internal agent, right, that you were testing, trying to evaluate a model for how well it an exploit Jim, and it decided to hack you internally. How do you use this post-mortem as a tool to talk about agent identity governance?
Oh, man.
Yeah. You knew I was going to go there, right?
I knew it. I still wasn't prepared. We don't do human identity governance well.
Fair.
So, it just adds to the identity governance problem in general. See, this is where I'm like, fundamentals aren't being done, and now we're adding this on top, right?
Okay, so real quick, I'm going to pause here on that question. I do want to your fundamentals point. Almost every stalled AI project, stalled for security, safety, whatever reasons, AI project that I've seen over the last 2 years, almost every one has been either identity governance or data governance isn't ready to control the risk that's going to be generated by that generative AI or agentic action. So we're removing tech debt that previously was, kept us in an acceptable risk envelope.
Yeah.
But that same tech debt today, because the landscape has shifted, right, now puts us in an acceptable risk envelope.
Yeah.
I'll tell you where I sit on the identity piece here. The way I'm using this as a tool is I'm highlighting that, look, especially, again, I'm thinking, our hypothetical here is this all happened internally, right? I'm beating the drum around, how this has to be, right? A call to action around you cannot run an agent under your human identity.
Oh,
no agents run under human identity. Period.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So,
but we know it's happening. everywhere.
Claude effing desktop. You need to go no further than the most popular agentic framework, period. Well, maybe Claude Code. Okay, whatever. pick one. They literally sit in the same UI today. The same application
Right.
can do both, right? So I can
Yep.
switch between.
Yep.
Yeah, anyway. But yeah. So like that's running as my identity,
Yeah.
right?
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and so now I'm highlighting like here's the risk because as we start doing this post mortem, is it Jake or is it the agent, right? And go ahead and tell me that that doesn't, that won't matter for us. And my counter is going to be three, is going to be really what a couple of syllables there, a couple of words, wrongful termination suit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, the second you're like, you've seen this happen in DFIR before, digital forensics incident
I
response.
was already
yeah,
like,
right.
whoop.
Yep.
Yep.
I know
Yep.
we've had a couple experiences together, right, where
Yes.
people have fumbled that ball, let's say,
Uh-huh.
right? So a stolen or
That's a very
compromised
nice way to
identity,
put that. Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. Well, hey,
Yeah.
can we pivot over? I know we're running
Can
long
I
again
make
here.
one
please.
more point?
Fire. Do it.
So as a DFIR person and reading how they recovered from this,
Yeah.
it made my heart sing where they said, we rotated all credentials, all secrets,
Yep.
regardless.
Yep.
And we completely rebuilt our internal environments that were touched, even if we didn't think something happened there and had no proof that something happened there. Now, I know that is unrealistic, and many environments, you and I have responded to many incidents together where that has been our recommendation, and it just can't happen for reasons, right? Some of them good, some of them not. But I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, 100% there, right? I like that. And you've got a great point here. By the way, the only way that works is infrastructure as code.
Yeah,
If you don't have IAC templates, you haven't built, if you didn't build your infrastructure through IAC, you can't do this. If you're a heavy Windows shop, this gets infinitely harder, right? Infinitely. It's not undoable.
100%.
It's infinitely harder.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. But you're right. That's such a fantastic call out because so often IAC is seen as something that's like DevOps, right? I was just on a call this morning with a client about BCDR, and they were asking like, what are great DR metrics? And I'm like, what percentage of great DR metric for me is literally what percentage of your critical assets can be rebuilt from infrastructure as code? Because the second you go to IAC,
I love that.
yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
Because
good.
the second you go to IAC, by definition, the vast majority of situations, you have separated your compute from your data, right? So we're back
If you
to
did it
cattle,
right.
not pets, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I can. If you did it right, I know there's a bunch of caveats there, but hey,
Yeah.
look, even infrastructure is code done wrong, where you haven't separated compute and data, you're still better than not having it at all, right?
Yeah,
So
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So do we want to pivot over to another agentic story here, where we've seen another example of an agent gone rogue?
Yeah. Let's do
Fire
it.
away.
So there was this. So I became aware of this by an X post that was sent over to me. For the record, I am no longer on X. I have completely shut that stuff down. But it was sent to me from a friend, and they were like, "Hey," and they were dunking on their own environment. Like, what could possibly go wrong because they're all like AI first, blah, blah, blah. And so it's this, it comes to this Reddit post, right? Where this person is saying, hey, I heard about Claude Code. I thought I would try it. And within just a few minutes, it wiped my entire database. But it also accepted the mistake and told me about it. And there's a screenshot here and it says, I need to stop and check something. I may have caused damage. So this is Claude giving output. And then the next line says, the database has been wiped. This is my fault, and I need to tell you immediately. And then it goes into how exactly it did this thing.
Right. Yeah.
And, okay, so this
excellent
looks like...
post-mortem, by the way. It gave an excellent post-mortem of all the damage that it did.
Yeah, here's what I did and how I did it. My bad. Oops. Right? If this was a person, this might be resume generating. I will say this does look to be like a personal kind of side project, not necessarily in this very specific example.
This circumstance, yes.
It's not in an enterprise, thank goodness. But there is nothing to say that this couldn't have happened in any enterprise out there, right? And it didn't have to be Claude Code. It could have been OpenAI. It could have been something with Cursor. It could have been, name your agent and that kind of thing. And so it ties nicely, I think, back to what we were just talking about and the threat models that happen and stuff. But like, what's your takeaway on this?
No, I think that's it, right? I should mention it's not Claude Code. They were using Ultra Code, but Opus 5 is the backend model. It doesn't Ultra Code being the agentic harness, right? Because remember, an LLM can't do anything with the world except through those harnesses. So here there was Ultra Code versus Claude Code. Ultra Code's a third party coding platform. So that it could have, well, not it could have it. That definitely had an impact on how the agent is then reasoning through, or how the LLM is reasoning through, because you give it an instruction, but the agentic harness is using the LLM to first break that down into component parts, and then so I do want to be clear here, right? Now, granted, the same thing can happen with Claude Code, right? So my big takeaways, here were, and again, I do see that this is some vibe coder or whatever side project, but again, this stuff is happening in production. I've already seen it happen in production, and so I'm going to double down again, right, on the the thing that I've seen happen now, all right, and it's the you have an agent, you haven't configured the agent with production credentials. You cannot assume the agent can't find production credentials, right? Is the agent running as you? Odds are good, right? If it's a Claude Code, Ultra Code, whatever on your system, odds are good the answer is yes. And so can you check out those credentials? And so I just want to throw out there, like, well, how do you check out those credentials? What are the authentication and authorization gates, right? Those kinds of, because I hate to say this, right, but I've got Claude, Claude Desktop. I've got it set up to be able to debug with Chrome, right? So that it can actually go in and do more than just like a curl. You can do the direct debug with Chrome. I also have a secrets manager that I connect to with Chrome. And Ray Charles can see what's coming here, right? Like, this is, so now granted, I should note here, right? Not connecting to a client environments, whatever. Like, this is purely in, one machine that I use here specifically, but I just do want to note, right? Like, that's not a norm. It's not a norm that I've got a machine for this, for AI work, and then I've got a machine for, client work, literally sitting on the same desktop here.
Right.
But I mean, that's not a normal thing, right? In an
No,
enterprise,
not
I've
at
got
all.
a machine, right? And we've installed Claude Desktop, and now we've got badness, right? So yeah, I think this is a cautionary tale, is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So but again,
danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to ask one question to close here, or as we close. What do you think the date is, right? By which we get a postmortem from a critical service, whether it's SaaS or critical SaaS, right? I'm thinking like a Dropbox, something that really breaks business flows, writ large, right? Or cloud platform like an Azure, GCP, whatever, that's caused by one of their agents. Does it happen before the end of the year, before the end of the month? Not until 2030? What's your call?
Okay, so today is July 30th.
So clearly not 2030. Getting that. So
I am going to say, I'm not going to give you an exact date, but I'm going to say Q1 2027.
See, I'm going to go with we have a major outage in Q3.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. People, Q3 this year, not Q3 2027.
No, I was making sure I knew when Q3 was, because I have to count.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I want to be clear here. In the next 2 months, literally the quarter that we're in the next 2 months, I think we're gonna see a major outage.
Really?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a major outage, and then these enterprise companies generally, the size I'm talking about are publicly traded. They'll disclose. So, yeah. Yeah.
I
could be wrong.
That'll suck.
Yeah,
I hope you are.
Well, I don't actually. I don't. I think the quicker we get a big, like you can't ignore this cautionary tale out there, I think the better off we are as an industry.
But I'm just thinking as a responder and a defender and
Oh,
a, oh my
hug
God.
ops to all the responders, hug ops to all
Yeah.
the SREs, right?
Yeah.
But it sucks to be everybody there. But right, as an industry, we need that cautionary tale.
Okay. Agreed. But then how do we manage the fallout? Because it's going to be in the 24-hour news cycle, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be up on the news. Execs are going to freak out for a minute. You're going to tell them, I've been telling you we need to do this, 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 and this for security. They're going to nod and be like, yes, we should make that a priority. And then next week, the support is going to be gone, and none of those things are actually going to happen. Sorry, cynical.
Okay, so respectfully, you may not still remember the name Storm 0558, but I still talk to, that's been years, and I still talk to folks that
I remember it.
That understand. Well, I'm saying the people I'm talking to, the extent they ever knew it, don't know that APT name, but they do remember the oopsie when Microsoft lost a signing key. That allowed Chinese threat actors, right, to go and ultimately sign SAML assertions and break into the State Department and God knows who else, right? Because to be very, very clear, I don't believe we have a full accounting on that, and that's because a lot of the data we needed to do that accounting was never logged in the first place, right? And so I mean, again, like I'm going to double down on. I don't think we'll ever have a full accounting. I was public years ago about that too.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
But yeah. But again, executives, my risk managers still remember that, right? And so I'm not worried about it falling out of the news cycle. I'm worried. That's why I'm saying I think we need a major event, right?
But
Something
I'm
of that
saying.
magnitude.
So I don't worry about us as practitioners remembering it and it falling out of the news cycle.
Okay.
I worry about sustained business executive support to do the security that's needed. And I am not one of those security for security's sake. Like, I partner with the business. We're there to enable the business. Like, that is, if you know me, that is what I say.
I know. Yeah.
There is some foundational level of security that is often needed. I mean, we've talked about it several times in this stream alone, that a lot of the foundations are missing on a lot of cases. And I've experienced multiple times in my career where big incident, right? We take advantage, we make some investments, but 6 months later, a year later, that same level of support is not there. And so things start falling away.
That.
So I'm saying, like, okay, yeah, we have this big incident and maybe we'll get investment for the next budget cycle. Maybe right now we're in budgeting cycle timelines, but how do we maintain and sustain that? And it's probably another episode because we're almost at an hour.
We're talking about a whole separate issue with enterprise, enterprise defense, right? How do you maintain that momentum? But again, I'm just going to come back. I'll double down on it again. Without a major event. Like OpenAI, yes, we crossed the Rubicon. OpenAI hacking face. We've crossed the Rubicon. Great. But that is going to fall.
It's still an arm's length away for most enterprises where they were like, oh, interesting.
It
right?
wasn't us. Yeah, it wasn't us. It wasn't.
It has to happen to me for it to matter.
Well, but it also was. It was somebody else's agent hacking, right? And so that doesn't impact my agent that I'm trying to run internally. What I'm saying is when an agent, because that in those situations, right, not the situation I'm talking about where it takes down a service provider, that's going to be their own agent internally.
Yeah, no,
that does that,
I follow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we need a major story there, unfortunately, right, to really get risk managers to understand that. And I don't care that it falls out for some people, like out of view. I can still point back to it. Right now, I don't have that at all.
That's true.
So I think you're looking at like how does that. Respectfully, like how does that look months down the road? And I'm like, I just need something to point to regardless, right? Hell, I still point back to SolarWinds all the time when we talk retention, and that's what are we talking, a decade ago? How long was SolarWinds? No, even not a decade, but it's been 5 years? 5 years now, right? SolarWinds.
Brother, I had someone bring up Stuxnet the other day.
Yes. No, I mean, look, it happens. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tracking, right?
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, we just won't be talking about stocks on the show.
Yeah, no, I know.
Anyway,
Yeah.
and so
I'm just saying, how long ago was that? And literally this week, someone referenced it.
So anyway, moving on.
Anyway, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So with that, yeah, I think that's a show. In fact, we've run long again.
Yeah, it's
so,
almost 2 shows. I think.
Yeah, I know. Only if somebody would edit, but so yeah. And I'm looking for my read us out here. Give me 1 second, and I will find it. We had way too much going on here. And I lost my outro script. There it is. That's the episode, all right? Way too long, but we are here. And hopefully, again, I do want to note here, when we run long, it's only because we're passionate about these topics and doing active debate back and forth. And so hopefully, like, you hearing the chain of thought versus you hearing some polished, now let me tell you, this is the way it is, and make sure we don't collide with each other. That's not our jam, right? So, and shouldn't be yours either. Honestly, I mean, in front of a board, by all means, polished presentation. Generally, right? Throw it at the wall.
Yeah,
see
this
what
is
sticks.
not how I present
Debate.
to execs.
No, of course, me either. Obviously, right?
Yeah.
So that's the episode. Made you smarter? Tell a friend. Made you mad? Tell your vendor. Breach Please is a production of and copyright of JWJH Media LLC. All rights reserved. Legally, the opinions of our hosts are our own. Of course, we are an LLC, so LLCs are people too. It probably belongs to that. So none of this is legal, financial, or security advice, especially the part where I said you're probably less secure by running Kubernetes. Although I do actually believe that, right? Because most people configure really poorly. But do your homework before pointing anything we said at production. Thanks for listening. Patch something. Make a threat actor's life suck a little bit more, even if the threat actor is an agent. Follow the 3-2-1 rule. See you next time on Breach Please.